I work in a great job in an amazing hospital with a team of absolute legends. That's what I love about the job, is that I'm surrounded by experts. There's always people who are better than me, who know more than me, that I can watch and learn from. But at the same time, it also makes me realise that I'm not as good as them, and it leaves me with a constant feeling that I'm not up to scratch. Lots of us experience this, and it's been coined as imposter syndrome. Actually, the people who experience this most are women or people in minority groups. The question is imposter syndrome really pathological? People who suffer from this so-called imposter syndrome feel like they're frauds. Even though they are smart, competent professionals, they feel like they are faking it. They feel like they're going to get found out, and they're worried that it's just round the corner before someone's going to realise that they're really terrible at their job. Instead of celebrating their accomplishments, they actually live in fear that they're about to be exposed. People with imposter syndrome spend their life being convinced that they're not good enough. These tips help us all manage these feelings of imposter syndrome. Tip 1. Separate feeling from fact. It's easy to get carried away in the moment of an incident or experience where you start to catastrophize and think, I'm not good enough, this is it. But take a step back and think, what are the facts? What actually happened here, and what am I actually just feeling happened? Once we start to separate these two, it's a bit easier to keep it in perspective. Tip 2, recognise when it's a normal feeling rather than pathologizing it. So I work with amazing experts. I work with people who are truly brilliant at pediatrics, at emergency, at retrieval, at trauma. So it's not surprising that I have times where I feel inadequate or where I just feel discomfort in the role, because I'm surrounded by people who are amazing. So take time to think about why you might be feeling the way you're feeling. Try to normalize it, because it probably is a reasonable feeling. And instead of that, think about all the great things that have brought you to that role. So think about the strength and resilience that you've shown to get to where you are, rather than worrying about the fear of how you feel being surrounded by experts. Tip 3, confidence is not the same as competence. The loudest person in the room isn't necessarily the best person in the room. So don't let yourself go into a spiral because you are not the most confident person there. When you start feeling that you've got imposter syndrome, you actually can go into a spiral. Your self-confidence drops, where you have more self-doubt and where you start to withdraw. Remember, just because you don't conform doesn't mean that you've not got value to add. All leadership styles can work. It's just about making who you are work in the way it needs to for you in the team that you're in. Tip 4, develop a healthy response to making mistakes. It's okay when things don't go exactly according to plan. In medicine, we've got systems in place to review things when a very bad mistake happens, but actually we all make small mistakes all the time. When you're someone who is prone to worrying about these things, actually the things you tend to worry about might be very small. So learn to forgive yourself. It's okay to make mistakes. You are only human. It's more about learning from them and moving on. Tip 5, get feedback from people you trust. Rather than being worried about what everyone thinks about you, actually find some people that you can trust, that you can ask for advice, that will give you genuine but sensitive advice, and ask for feedback. Likely you'll find that is not as bad as you have decided in your mind. Tip 6, rewrite the script. Instead of thinking about how bad you are at your job or how great everyone else is or how much of a fraud you are, flip the script. Remind yourself about all the great things you've done to get to where you are, and also reflect on the culture of wherever it is you work, whatever team you're in, and how that's impacting how you feel. It's probably less about you and more about the environment or culture where you have studied, learned, or worked. Tip 7, visualize success and accentuate the positives. Instead of getting negative and being in a cycle of negative self-talk, think about how it's going to feel when it goes well and tell yourself that you can do it. You know you've got the skills, you need to believe in yourself and get on and do the job. Tip 8, let go of perfectionism. A lot of people with imposter syndrome will never feel that they've got it right because it's never perfect, but we know that perfect cannot be achieved. Let go of perfection and remind yourself, feeling unsure, it's okay. It's just a feeling. It doesn't consume you. It's just a normal feeling that you're having. Tip 9, be yourself. If you're feeling like you've got imposter syndrome, don't conform to be like the other people around you. That's not the solution. Be yourself. Don't be what you think other people want you to be. You do you. Tip 10, reward yourself. When something does go well, even if it's a small thing, make sure you reward yourself. Tell yourself exactly why you've done well and what's gone well, and use this to remind yourself the next time something doesn't go brilliantly, so you can balance out the negatives with all the great work you've done. If you enjoyed this video, you'll like my video on how I conquered my version of the yips when I developed shaky hands for my suturing procedures, and you can watch that video here.